Welcome to the Roho Rest Hour, where we slow down, breathe deep, and give ourselves permission to rest. It's Chloé and Michelle here, your guides to all things rest. So grab a cozy spot, let go of the hustle, and let's embrace the flow. It's time to rest. Hello, and welcome to Roho Rest Hour. I'm your host, Michelle Majors, and joining me, of course, is my lovely and amazing co-host, Chloe.
Hello, everyone.
Yay! So, what you probably have figured out is that we are all things rest. We explore the need for rest, the lack of rest, barriers to rest. Today's episode is all about the exhaustion of caring relationships that should be carrying you. The kind where you lie awake at night wondering, how did I get here? What is going on? Like, what are the decisions that I made? What are the choices I made to get me here?
Yes.
So Chloe and I know this very well. And we've learned this hard truth that, sometimes your burnout isn't just about what others take. It's about what we're willingly and trained to give away. And we're just here to say, you're not needy. You're not broken. You're not too much. You're not flawed for wanting reciprocity and wanting support and wanting help. And so part of what makes us really tired is not having that support. Chloe mentioned earlier, this may not be an intimate relationship. It may be a work relationship. It could be parent-child. Lots of different relationships drain us. So here we go. Burnout, insomnia, resentments, and our bodies are rebelling against us because we are pushing it too hard. Yes. So here we are. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
In listening to all of that right now, it definitely brings up this knowing of self-responsibility within all of that, right? Because there's a common thread that I continue to see in my life, in our relationships, whether it's intimate, like you said, or with my children, or as a daughter or sister. And I have been noticing patterns in myself that continue to play out in all these different relationships and end up in this place of exhaustion.
Absolutely. And part of that too is just this, I don't think that we are even trained to stop and think of a different way it could be. I think we operate in a dysfunction, and all of our strategies are to manage the dysfunction, not to get out of the dysfunction, or not to do the work to say, this is dysfunctional, I'm out, or something needs to change, and no more, right?
Yeah, well, there's so many people that don't, we talked about this before, is even finding that pause enough in your day to even give yourself permission to think about those things. And so you remain in these cycles because you're not even finding that pause or rest to actually reflect and take the time to see how you could change, or how, you could do things differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the questions that someone asked me one time, because I was just in a relationship, and that this was a different relationship where, for every one thing they did, I was doing 10, right? And this is such a common thing. If you are a mother, you are a caregiver for young kids, or elderly parent, or anyone, any kind of caregiving role, you look up and you're just doing so much. And part of that narrative is that women are expected to carry that. We've talked about it before, right? So one time someone asked me, everything you just said, if I said those things back to you, that it was my relationship, and I said exactly back to you what you said to me, what would you think? But we just don't feel it when you're in it. And so I think that having that ability to have people in your life who hold that mirror up to you in the most uncomfortable ways sometimes becomes important when you're in some kind of relationship or partnership that doesn't feed you in the ways that it should, where you're not getting anything out or back.
But you then have to really take a look at, okay, you're now in that space where you can share that part of your exhaustion, and you can, be more open or have that support. And I have found that in having that perhaps for the first time or in a long time, you can then pour too much of yourself as well into that situation of, oh, there's finally, and there can be a different emotional exhaustion that can come from that. And so it's that balance of, okay, I'm being supported, I'm figuring out ways to rest or not feel so exhausted, but I also need other tools to lean into that's going to help balance that and not just have this one channel of rest or healing or rejuvenation, because I know that that can become draining in a different way. And so finding that those individual tools of power and empowerment. Mm-hmm.
One thing that I hear a lot is, where people feel like, I just think the idea of resting and caring for ourselves is a big lie. Because the reality is, when? I mean, and that's a reality for folks.
Yeah.
When does that happen?
Absolutely.
And you would find the time if you were laid up in a hospital somewhere, right? We don't relate to this as a deep enough necessity that it's part of brushing our teeth. It's part of going to the gym or whatever your self-care is. Not even self-care, hygiene. I mean, it's it is self-care. It's, I want to say, mental hygiene or emotional hygiene. Like, you have to keep, it's a thing that you do every day. It's a thing that you embed to your normal practice.
Right.
And so, if in fact, and I'll ask you this question, if in fact rest is not a luxury but a requirement, what would you have to stop? What could you stop doing?
Yeah. Well, I have obviously been thinking about this a lot as I navigate all sorts of situations in life, but especially with young children. And just the constant, you get used to the cycle of exhaustion. It becomes normal, So even, like I said, taking the time to pause and go, this routine and this level of busyness is not normal and not sustainable. You got to get to that part first. But the best way that I am finding to think about it or know how I could possibly change it is to literally schedule it. Because we schedule so many things in our life that we show up for work on time. We got to get the kids to school or home on time. There's, appointment, doctor's appointment, whatever it is. And so why is it that we don't give ourselves permission to schedule that part in, and how all those other areas would thrive so differently if we did do that?
Yeah. Well, I've been handed a gift of my time just opening wide up, opening wide. And I think about when we talk about our careers, and we talked about the culture, the cult of grind and hustle. And it's not until you stop doing something that you sit down and go, this is not only not healthy, but this is just not a human, grace-based, safe way to move through life. It's just pounding all the time. And so when you have things in life that just kind of say, okay, here's some time, the first thing you want to do is be afraid and go find something else to fill the time. Right. And so that was my first thing. It's like, maybe and then that lasted for 2 seconds, because by the time the exhaustion hit, I mean, come on, Chloe, you've been right here. And you see me just in tears, like, I can't do it. I can't do this. I can't do it. Not one more day. I can't. And just that feeling where I'm so exhausted, it hurts. I mean, it's this weird thing, right? It really, it hurts, and it clouds my mind. I just the brain fog. And I thought I was really, really losing it at that point, right? And so all of these things are happening and moving. And so not only did I lose this, what I thought was the money and the hunt and all the things, but I didn't know what to fill it with. But I was also so, again, exhausted and tired that everything just kind of caught up with. And during that time, the reality is that not all partners know how to support you in the ways that are specific and real in that moment. A lot of people look, and I'm not here to bash the male species and all of that, but I am here to say that sometimes if all you have is a hammer, then everything just looks like a nail. So I struggled with finding my way without that thing to go back to. Like, some people are like their children, where when I fall down, that's my why. And I love
Yeah.
I love my dogs. You know how much I love them. And that was the only thing that was sure in my life. That was it at that moment, right? And so,
and you definitely need those anchors in life, whether that is a living, breathing thing like an animal or a child. But there are so many other ways to find that purpose and passion, of course, that will hold you in that space when you really need it, when you get to that level of exhaustion and just, dare I say, broken, feeling. But I know that your body would have done that regardless. And so that's the point that I want to touch on too, is that, look, at some point it's going to break down, whether that's physically or mentally or emotionally or all three at the same time. And so how do we learn how to catch that moment before, and recognize the signs coming? And even if they're very small tweaks, what can be beneficial and helpful to take the edge off, to find, even, like we've been talking about, even finding 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be, oh, I'm going to lay down and take a 3-hour nap. Yeah. There can be something about seeing something beautiful, or hearing one of your favorite songs, or eating something delicious in the moment that you can pause and enjoy and be present with. And that can layer, and that can be, a teaching mechanism for how else to bring that into your life and how to expand that.
Absolutely. And all of this that we're talking about requires a shift. And it requires things that are difficult, like saying no, or saying, I'm not going to do this. Instead, I'm going to do this. And that this thing that you decide to do is solely about you. It's like we don't want to do things that are solely by, for, and about ourselves.
Yeah. And what is that? Is that I always have I'll say I've really worked on this, but I used to really let guilt drive me. And especially when it came to asking for my own goodness or greatness or rest, support. And that, yes, that is a very easy cycle to get into.
Well, some of the things, I'm going to ask you this question in a minute. So I'm going to answer what I think, and then I want to hear what your thoughts are about the things that we tell ourselves to justify, right? So one of the things that, in my family, and this is not my current family, like growing up, was, he's not beating you, is he? He's not running the streets, is he? He's not. And the bar is so low.
Yeah, right.
And so there's nothing about.
What are you complaining about?
Say again?
What are you complaining about?
Right.
Like, you have all this, right?
Right.
Or different, or
or even now, like one of the narratives is the horror stories of online dating at a certain age, or so you're like, this ain't great, but that I don't want to do that. And that's not the only way that it could turn out. But when you are letting go of something that's about 40%, the idea of a 90%, it just seems so far. You're like, I'll gamble with 40. Then be daring enough and bold enough to go for a 90% life. Shit, 100% life. What does that mean? What does that look like? And why is it that we won't even dare to dream that something could be wonderful and beautiful, miraculous? But there's just this way that this thing that we bring to it where the bar is so low. And when there's a statistic, I've heard it for a long time. I haven't vetted it, but I've heard it a lot that most suicides happen on Monday mornings, on Sunday nights or Monday mornings, because what's in front of you is like, this is going to be just the same. And how do I know it's going to be just the same? Because my mind hasn't changed to anything else. It hasn't reached for anything. It hasn't created anything. There's nothing in life calling you and waking you up in the morning saying, this is something worth getting up for. Right. And so it's really, really interesting that because the bar is so low and it's like, at least it's not this, or at least that you're not online dating, then we tend to have that justify and allow us to stay in situations that.
Well, and yeah, we're definitely a culture of quick fixes too. And I think of it kind of, life analogy along with, say, doing a fad diet. Like, okay, I'm going to go all in and do this. And then how sustainable is that when ultimately the most success is going to come from actual lifestyle change? And it's not dieting. That's just how it is now, right? Willpower and the self-love and all that goes into having to make that change. But life can be like that, where people look at your situation and think, well, why do you need it better? And just, throw a Band-Aid on it. And same with the medical system. It's like, oh, well, yeah, these are the symptoms. Let's treat the symptoms, but let's not talk about why those symptoms are happening to begin with. And so it's the same with, our self-care and love. It's like, well, we can't definitely a quick fix is necessary and nice sometimes, but ultimately, what is that underlying reason that these opportunities for self-care and rest and support are not happening?
Absolutely. When I was talking about this narcissist thing, I was thinking about like gaslighting, right? Where they deny your reality. You're just making things up, or things to have you think that what is really isn't, and what isn't really is, right? All of that stuff that they do. But there's a piece of that we do to ourselves, like this self-gaslighting that we do, where we make up these martyr-based stories of, and this is my favorite one, by the way. Let me just tell you, this is my favorite number. If I don't do it, it ain't gonna get done.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If I don't put this 80th thing on my plate, because it's just easy for me to knock it out than to ask somebody to do it, hope that they do it. And because, and we've had this, this is me, right? In our interactions where I'm like, hey, Chloe, do this. What I don't remember, and what I don't like, all of the pieces of what are those self expectations that I don't convey because they're just part of who I am, or part of how I do my art, or part of how I think. Those don't get conveyed in the, hey, can you do this thing? So you do the thing, and I'm like, oh, I just didn't tell you that there are details. I want this one to have an accent over it. I want this to, because it's so part of who I am. And so we do these things where we don't even set ourselves up to get the help. But the gaslighting part is that it makes us feel better. It gives us some sense of martyrdom or sort of sense of power.
Well, yeah.
Like, if you don't, I'll just do it myself. I'll just do it myself like I do everything else.
Exactly. Well, and it also brings up the like, well, I can't because of this other thing, instead of like, okay, what am I choosing to do or not do that's preventing me from being able to have this, or have this time, or find this tool? And so there's a lot of, self-reflection, obviously, that we've been talking about, but you have to take that empowerment, that self-empowerment, and do differently. No one's going to we've talked about this before. Regardless of that being the most supportive person in the whole world, it's very rare that someone's going to be like, you know what? I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to go do for yourself, and that's going to be the right thing. And we know that that's not the case. We know that's not how it works. And so who else is going to know that? Who else is going to take that time and really standing in your own self and empowerment and love, instead of like, well, that person's preventing me from doing this. you know, and I
Well,
easily done. It's easily
it's easily done. And, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of in my head about this whole narcissism things and gaslighting thing. Like we talk about people as being energy vampires where they suck your energy, you
done.
know, but we're our own energy vampires. Like sometimes I spiral into things that are horrible to
Yeah.
they haven't even happened, or they're not, it's not even real, but I put myself in this mental state
Mhm.
where I will be in the car and I will get to my destination exhausted because I've been thinking, and what if, and this doesn't work, and what about
Mhm.
that. I'm so mad at them, and you stay mad at them and you blame them when you're the one that's not actively saying, okay, here's what I'm going to do. After Friday, I'm going to set all these things up for you. After Friday, you're on your own.
Mhm.
I'm not doing it anymore. I
Yeah.
can't do
Yeah.
it as a matter of safety and self-care. I'm not doing it.
Just
We
being
don't allow people to go out there and figure it out, because here's what I realized. One time I got so just done that I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm out. And
Mhm.
somehow that house didn't fall down. The
Mhm.
stuff still
Right.
got
Right.
handled somehow without me. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, so I voluntarily just made up.
Mhm.
And part of this is our safety mechanism too.
Well,
We want to make sure that we're safe. So if you trust somebody else, it can't be quite sure.
well, and there's also safety, even if you have been doing a pattern one way or formula one way forever and know time and time and time again that the outcome is not what you want.
Mhm.
It's still what's familiar, and it's still easy to fall back into that default. And it's like, yeah, I know this doesn't work, but I also know it doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like, you know it, and opposed to taking that extra risk or changing it in some way. And it's like, it very well could work out, and it probably will, but I haven't seen it before. So I'm going to keep going back to what I know.
Right.
That even
Right.
though it's totally unreliable and really unsafe when it comes down to it, it's still safe in my head because it's what I know.
But I think that if we stand in who we are and stand in our own, like what is healthy for me, we would probably see that people would figure it out.
Yeah.
And if they didn't figure out how to do it, they would probably figure out, oh, this is how much you do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, either way, it moves the conversation and the situation forward when they either um figure out and really see
Mm-hmm.
all the small things, because the exhaustion is the small things.
Absolutely. All adding up. And it's really the consistency, right?
Mhm.
We, as caretakers or women, we are so quick to just cover all the bases. We
Mhm.
just see all the details. Like you said, it's like, you know, it needs to be done and you just do it. That's just
Mhm.
what it is. And so, yes, when you do pull back that energy from situations, which I know is really, that's a definitely where a lot of my fear comes from, because you see the aftermath, just as you were
Right.
saying. Okay, I'm pulling back my energy from this space. It's freaking chaos. And that makes me feel some kind of way too. But
Mhm.
ultimately, that's the way that I'm going to find that space for me and that empowerment. I can't take on all of that. I don't want my kids leaving the house and what, I'm going to come and clean up after them at their house in college, like, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah, there is, that's my job to teach them, like, through doing it myself. Like, I'm taking care of myself. Of course, I'm loving and taking care of this, but you need to see that I'm taking the time to rejuvenate and pause and can continue being the badass that I am. But if that
Mhm.
just keeps going and I'm not teaching all these other people and relationships around me what is necessary,
Mhm.
they're not going to, like we said, it's like, oh, excuse me, this system isn't working for me. You do everything. Let me just,
Mhm. Yeah.
most people are going to be enjoying that in one way or another.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And oh, here's one thing that is exhausting. Explaining yourself
mm,
over and over. Not only explaining yourself, but doing the rehearsal
mm,
of trying to figure out the best way to
mm,
explain things where they actually hear it. They hear it in a way where they feel like they need to act activate and get involved and support and help, and not like an attack, like I do everything around here. You know, ideally we want to, be with folks that they see it and they get it. They see it, they get it. And when you say, honey, I can't. This is that they say, what does that mean? Okay, does it mean get another job? Does that mean get what does that mean, and what does that look like, and how can I support you? Just tell me what you need. Let's do it together.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so much of it is managing the response. So then if I say it this way, I know they're going to take offense. If I say it this way, then I know that they're going to, deny or blame or get mad, or the work that it takes when you are not aligned with your partner in a way where there's just expectations of, okay, it's my turn to rest. Okay, it's your turn to rest. I got you. What do you need? Okay, what do you need?
And there is, like you said, there are definitely partners out there. Are so many people. I think we underestimate, and you kind of brought this up with, what needs to be done and how you want it done, and so you just do it. People are not mind readers, and no one thinks like you exactly, or me, and so I think we often underestimate how much we do need to explain clearly, and we can't expect people to know what we need if we're not freaking saying it,
Right.
Want that in our partner, but I know that it takes teaching that too.
Yeah.
You have to have a willing partner to learn that. But there are many partners that I just needed you to say it, and here I am. Let's go.
Yeah.
Flip side to that, where you have to know your boundaries, and you have to know. And I've been in a situation where that person is lovely, and it's fine that they operate in that way. It's also fine that that doesn't work for me. And there had to come a time where it's like, yes, I'm teaching all that I can, and there has to be boundaries in that. Well, I'm not here to teach everything, though. There's a limit to now it's your responsibility, right? And so you have to find that line for yourself, because that can lead you to an extreme emotional exhaustion, let alone many other things. But you have to recognize that boundary. And also, like I said, recognize when your partner really is willing to learn and give effort to that. And then you have to not feel guilty about that, and freaking ask for what you need. Like, this is what I need to be better, to thrive more, any of that.
Yeah. And it's important to try not to get resentful that I shouldn't have to explain this. Do you know how many times that's ridiculous, right? Like, but now if you said it 80 times, then okay.
Well, and there's core beliefs, right? There's core values that as a partner, especially if you've been with someone for more than a short period of time, there's just bottom line, that this does or does not work for this person, right? And so you can't keep doing and acting like you don't know that. But then there are those other more surface things that are maybe not those core values, but are obviously important to stay in alignment with those values.
Absolutely. And what you said was really great. Like, it's that consistency piece. Professor said, Michelle, you will sleep very well at night if you give your feedback consistently, appropriately, and immediately. You got to do all three.
Yeah.
Consistently, same narrative, appropriately, and without going, I'm so sick of you, right? And immediately. And my thing is, pick two. I can give it to you consistently. I can give it to you immediately. May not be appropriate. You know what I'm saying? Or I can give it to you appropriately, but it's going to take me some time to step away and think. It's not going to be immediate. But I think the true, like, my ultimate goal of like liberation is being able to say, that doesn't work for me. I need X. And then they do it again. And I say, that doesn't work for me. I need X. And it doesn't work for me to have to keep repeating it. So I'm going to need you to true that up. Maybe a couple more chances after that. But I think part of it is that, well, if that didn't work, then let me try it this way. And then we try it that way. We don't get our needs met, and then we're angry. But the power is being clear about who you are, There's nothing to get upset about if you say, I need you to run to the store, and they're like, broke their leg and they can't go. Like, it's that simple. Either you can go or you can't. And I need to determine if I can, what that means for me needing you, because I need you to go to the store, whatever the case may be.
Well, there's so much connection to this, I feel like, with, just knowing your love languages, right? And I don't know how many people have read about that, but it's fascinating because it really is, we all have a different way. We talked about this with rest. It's the same thing. We all have unique and individual ways that we want and need to receive things, and we often are giving in the same way that we are hoping to receive. And so if you're not clear on what that is and how to communicate that, that immediately leads to exhaustion. If you're not able to be heard in the, you might feel best someone holding you and cuddling and like being intimate in that way. And that's what you need to rejuvenate and feel rested. I might want to go, hack down 3 acres of land with somebody and be jazzed. And like, that's how I'm connecting with them. And I feel loved. And even though that might be physically tiring, that's so enriching to me spiritually and emotionally. So we all have, those ways, but it's really recognizing that in ourselves and being able to unapologetically communicate that. And if that person is not able to understand that need and therefore continue pushing your exhaustion, then you have your knowing, you have your knowing.
So then what are our takeaways for today then? What are the key things for us to say, okay, we know if we do this thing, or we know that this will give us some power? Like, what are some of the couple core things that you're like, these are musts?
Well, it's back to that reciprocal energy that you talked about at the beginning. Really individualizing what really resonates with your greatness and goodness, what brings calm and grounded energy to you, and pinpointing that, and then taking the time to communicate that, obviously not just to other people, but especially to yourself, like being really real with yourself and taking that responsibility of reflection, and therefore going, yes, I do need a 20-minute power walk.
This is the second time you've made some kind of slip up. Okay, go ahead.
Where is my brain?
Power whack. Go ahead.
Walk or whatever that is. Like, it's just keeping it real yourself about where that exhaustion is coming from, and how you can communicate to yourself and others your need for changing that.
Well, I think I'm gonna pick. It takes me to someone I interviewed, Vivian Phillips here, an icon in Seattle community,
amazing woman.
And I asked her what was the key to her liberation, and she said, my personal integrity. My integrity is the key to my liberation. And I'm like, wait. Because it's so simple, but it feels so complicated, right?
Truth.
It's your own truth. Why do you feel so free? Because I have integrity and I have boundaries. So when I give my word to something, I'm clear, this is what I'm about and this is what's going to happen. And if you can't do that, then I know we're out of alignment. I move on.
Right. And stay on your path.
Stay on your path and keep doing. One thing that I don't think we do well is we don't walk into a relationship with a knowing that listen, I'm about my integrity and here are my values. Here's what's important to me. I don't mind getting off this bus and catching another bus, right? But we're like, oh, the rest of my life, I'm going to, till death do it, and I'm never going to leave. And then we put ourselves in this situation where we just double down and we dig deeper and deeper and deeper and cross boundary after boundary after boundary. And we don't stand in our personal integrity. So I'm saying, know who you are, know what your truth is, your personal integrity, have that intact, and then create boundaries. And so between the boundaries and this is what it is, there's a freedom in not feeling like you have to drag somebody or keep explaining. It's exhausting.
Yes. So there's an allowance of rest if you do find that space. You do speak your truth. And again, it goes back to there are certain core values, right? Relationships, no matter what, they're going to take compromise. There's some give and take for sure. But if your core values and knowing of what you need, how you can be your best self, if that's clear, you can navigate all of that. But again, yes, if that's not in alignment, if there's not that communication, it's just bound to lead to exhaustion.
Absolutely. I can't think of a better place to end our this episode, our show for today. Thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you next time. Hey, we certainly hope you enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please do all the things you know to do on the socials. Like, subscribe, come back and join us, but above all, get rested.